we don't think of Jordan Travis as a runner. We think of Jordan Travis as a passer. And I didn't think that was possible. Again, it's a testament to him, but I think others have noticed to the point where you go into these games. Again, there were entire games last year Jordan Travis didn't run the ball. And I think some of those games he was instructed not to. A, we didn't need him to. We could run traditionally. The offensive line was a far cry better than it's been. But B, I also think that he was dealing with that injury from the Louisville game, and there was no need to put any added pressure on him to beat you with his legs if you didn't have to. And so I continue to be amazed by the fact that Jordan Travis has transitioned to a place of just being a great passer, which I say great, a really good passer.
What I didn't expect to see was that you would get to, with ESPN's cameras, or if you were in the press box or in the stands at Doak, you were able to see the mental part of the game on the fly in the heat of the moment affect him, and then Jordan Travis overcome that. Unfortunately for us, it had to affect him in a game like NC State, where, I mean, it was very hard to lose that game. And we found a way to lose that football game, and that was frustrating. But again, this was not a life or death season. It was about improvement. But you saw the interactions with Jordan and Coach Norvell for about a game and a half worth of football where they were not feeling it. They were not in sync. And Jordan, I think, was kind of panicking. I mean, plain and simple, I think he was panicking. The game was moving fast for him. He was making decisions that were not characteristic of a good quarterback, at least as a pocket passer. But you know what? He hadn't been in that position to learn how to be a pocket passer in the heat of the moment. So we all had to go through that growth process as a fan base and kind of be patient about it. I just found that whole stretch of the season in the middle to be really fascinating. And then to watch him come out the other side of it, win you the Florida game by himself, and then in the Oklahoma game, show the ability to throw anticipatory throws, make decisions, understand that the ball needs to be in a certain place as a receiver is getting out of his break. It was a really, really fun ride. And it started almost immediately, that LSU game, after the first 2 or 3 third downs, where he knew where the pressure was coming from and he knew where to go with the football, to the end of the year where you're seeing, all right, now I know you can do this and make throws, but can you do so before the receiver gets out of his break instead of seeing it before you throw it? He showed signs there too. It has been really fun to watch. And if he goes to another level this year and is a legitimate Heisman contender and a legitimate professional prospect, I mean, this is one of the most unlikely things we'll have ever covered in our time with Florida State.
Fundamentally, it's changed what we think is possible. I don't know that we'll ever see it again. And I'm going to have to kind of catch myself, because I think more often than not, if you see overwhelming evidence that a guy is not a good passer and he's a sophomore in college, well, look, man, he's not going to be a good passer. It's just not going to happen. Jordan Travis is an outlier. He is the exception, not the rule. It is remarkable. I don't think you're going to see too many of these moments ever again. So I am trying to appreciate it. I will say there's a lot of room for growth. Like, as good as he is as a college quarterback, and certainly the improvements that we're documenting and discussing now as a passer, there's still plenty of room. He can get much faster. He can be far less of a see it and throw it. And you did note that he made some anticipatory throws in the Oklahoma game. He did. And he had moments like that this year, but he can get a lot more consistent with that, because he's going to have to really graduate to being a big-time prospect for the NFL. He's always going to have the problem of being small for the NFL. He's always going to have the problem of being, in the minds of what I would think NFL GMs are looking at, too small, injury-prone. This isn't Lamar Jackson. He's not built that way. He's not built like Jalen Hurts. He's not built in ways that allow him to take some of that punishment. So I think people will always be worried about that, but they may be willing to look beyond those worries if he continues to get even better as a thrower. I mean, it's amazing. And I'm done doubting Jordan Travis. I've said this a bunch. I'm done saying he can't do it, because he's already done something I didn't think he could. He's already done something and then took it beyond that. And he transitioned from a pretty good passer to a guy that I could count on to win me a game throwing the football. It's It's really cool. And I'm rooting for it to continue because it's one of the great stories. It happens to be our story. We cover Florida State. We love the Noles, but it's a story that I think if I were doing a show in New Orleans, if I were doing a show in Austin, Texas, if I were doing a show in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I wanted to touch on college football, I would look at the best stories, and like we do here, the best stories in the game. TCU was one of the great stories in the game last year. It made zero sense that a team that lost their coach, was sub 500, came into the season, picked fifth in their own conference, which isn't a dominant conference to begin with, somehow ended up in the national championship game. That was an amazing, compelling story, and it was fun to talk about, just like it's fun to talk about the other great players in the game, Caleb Williams and others, Corum at running back for Michigan, like we do all the time. I would be bringing this up. I would be like, guys, do you realize that kid down in Tallahassee that when we watched Florida State, we thought, well, there's going to be a ceiling on what they can do because that guy isn't really a good passer. That's how you view kids like Jordan Travis coming into last season, is you say, oh, they can win some games, and he'll win some games single-handedly running the ball. And if their defense improves, who knows, they could win the conference. But you always cut them off and put together a ceiling or a limit to what they could do because they could not win in the passing game when defenses took his running ability away. But he has, and he can, and he did repeatedly. And I know that is a story, by the way. We became friends with the guys that cover LSU, and we'll talk to them again going into next year's game. They were all stunned after that game. I remember after the game, I talked to you and Gene in the post game from the box where I called in from the Superdome there, and we were having a discussion. And I said in that discussion, I can't believe from Jump Street how quickly Jordan Travis knew what LSU was trying to do to him, because they disguised every look to the last second over and over, and they gave him a bunch of different looks over and over and over again, and he never flinched. That was the story of that game. It wasn't the block extra point. It wasn't that Mike Norvell and crew tried to blow that game. It wasn't even the fumble down on the goal line and toss pitch and all that. It was that Jordan Travis was unflappable against that defense, which has some real dudes and a variety of looks. He never flinched. That was the story of that game to me, and it really was something that ended up portending of what was to come.
Yeah, to the point where, let's forget about that final 5 minutes or so for a second. You're up 2 scores late, and you feel like you should have been up 4 scores.
Yeah, he could have been dominating.
Because of how well he played. And look, this is the fun part about this too. We discuss it more than we ever have. Either the mental health aspect of conditioning and coaching. This goes back 10 years to social media discussions, but then also something that we've talked about, as long as sports has been going on, which is confidence, and something you like to bring up a lot. But this is a cautionary tale for that reason. You can develop through confidence into something that you haven't been before or that you haven't shown before. Jordan Travis was a broken human being. That's the way he described himself in terms of wanting to leave the sport that he loved, the sport that he loved to play. He wanted to quit, but a combination of Mike Norvell and Kenny Dillingham coming in, stabilizing his situation after a bad run at Louisville, Willie's time here at Florida State, had him thinking, okay, I'll give it another run. And then with the confidence, the self-belief, came this unbelievable exponential growth. And the other thing is, beyond how awesome it is for the young man, how great it's been to document, and maybe what's to come for the coaching staff, when you get the moniker of a developer of a quarterback, that is unbelievably useful, either in the recruiting ranks or the transfer portal. And what Coach Norvell and Alex Atkins to a degree, and Tony Tokar certainly to a degree, have done to help Jordan Travis come along from where he was to where he's ever going to finish is so valuable, because next year, the rest of the country is going to pay a lot more attention to it, which means that 17-year-old quarterbacks who are really good are going to pay attention to that. It increases our stock, our standing in the recruiting community and in the transfer portal to continue to get better players. In short, Jordan Travis is opening the gate for us as an institution that develops quarterbacks, and that's never a bad thing, man. That's a hell of a feather to have in your cap to go along with some of that Memphis tape in order to make your pitch for a game-changing type player.